the way Congress is set up with our committee structure, we have the capability, and we do take on more than one issue at once. So while there might be 2 or 3 committees in the case of healthcare dealing with healthcare, other committees of Congress go about their continued work, and it doesn't really work to their detriment. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. What grabs the headlines is not always what constitutes the bulk of our individual work. I mean, I put a lot of my effort, for instance, into education policy. We've done a lot in education. We passed SAFRA, Community College Help Act, historical levels of funding for early childhood. Again, a lot of that is residing in the Senate, but it doesn't grab the headlines the way the healthcare debate might.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned some things, Tammy, about LGBT agenda items that are making their way through Congress, but in general, is there an appetite for tackling LGBT issues to get all of these things done, or is it that all of the energy and the desire to get something done resides in the House, and then it gets to the Senate where lots of great bills go to die?
Well,
I'm not biased against the Senate, I'm just saying.
I think at the outset of this conference, we observed the incredible impact that the passing of Senator Kennedy means for our community. In the U.S. Senate, he was such a stalwart champion of our issues. In fact, was the lead author on most of the LGBT civil rights bills. What his passing means is that other leaders are stepping up in the U.S. Senate.
Like who?
You have Senator Merkley, who is tackling the ENDA bill. And I had a chance to talk with him recently about his efforts. My partner in crime, if you will, on the Domestic Partnership and Benefit Obligation Act, in the Senate, it's a tripartisan bill because the lead author is Senator Lieberman, an independent. Second on the bill is Senator Collins, a Republican of Maine, and then there are, of course, a number of Democrats who have signed on to that bill. But Lieberman, as the committee chair, will be in a really good position to push the Domestic Partnership Benefits and Obligations Act through. So, we have people stepping forward in the Senate, but not with the same length and history of commitment to our LGBT agenda as Senator Kennedy had.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, the House will, barring something unexpected, pass ENDA and domestic partnership benefits early next year. That will then put the pressure on the Senate, which is where those will have to be dealt with before the expiration of the session by the end of the year.
So since you're in the House, I want to ask, well, maybe I will because it's fun. But first, let me ask you about, so Speaker Pelosi, she's down with the program. She wants to get ENDA and lots of other things that are part of the LGBT agenda done.
Well, she
Like
says there's no gay people in her district, though. So
wow, what an ally!
She is, we have great allies in leadership across the board. The majority leader, Steny Hoyer, the Speaker, the Whip. Whenever and they have told us as much, when we have the votes to move something and pass something, we have the ability to get it to the floor, and we have their commitments on those issues that we talked about.
Speaker Pelosi specifically sought Jared and I out as we were heading to this conference. She, by the way, is very envious that we're in her district and she's unable to be here. And I think some people saw her opening video as an honorary co-chair of this conference, welcoming us here. But as of Thursday, when I last spoke to her, I mean, her commitment on ENDA is unflinching and wants to have a very quick movement from the committee reporting of the bill to the floor consideration of the bill, hopefully within a week, finishing it up in committee and having it on the floor within a week.
Mm-hmm. So, not to pick on the Senate, but it's just too easy. Senate Majority Leader Reid, do you have any doubts? Ooh, I hear hissing. Do you have any doubt whatsoever that he wants to help get ENDA passed or any of the other LGBT agenda items passed?
Well, I haven't spoken personally with Senator Reid, but
just in your gut.
But in terms of, I think he's looking through the 60-vote challenge, and so my sense is on the Senate side that he'll be looking at other legislative vehicles to attach things to. We haven't talked about the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but that is also a high priority for the House. We believe we can do so in the in conjunction with passing our defense authorization bill for 2010. And that will probably be, therefore, an easier lift for the Senate because it will be in context of a larger bill that's a must-pass bill in their body. How we're going to, whether they're going to have to use similar strategies with attaching ENDA or domestic partnership benefits to other bills to make it to get rid of that 60-vote problem that they encounter from time to time, I think remains
all
to
the
be
time.
I think, it remains to be seen, and I think that's a likely outcome. But I think Senator Reid is committed to helping us find those vehicles to move things through.
There are a lot of people in the community who are incredibly frustrated with President Obama. Not just the pace of change, but with the man himself. Do you, and I'll start with you, Jared, do you have any doubt whatsoever that the president is committed to fulfilling all of the promises he's made?
I think he's absolutely committed to doing his best to fulfill the promises. I mean, when you run on something, I certainly haven't been able to do everything in Congress that I wanted to do. No, I'm sure nor has Tammy. We say, this is what I want to do. We're going to do our best to do it. But you know what? There's, in Congress, 434 people with different sets of ideas that might not agree on that. The president has the ability to do certain things within the executive branch, but as John Barry mentioned, for instance, with regard to domestic partnership benefits, look, I mean, John Barry wants to stretch the law to the extent he can. I mean, of course he wants to do it. It's a question of legality and whether they can without changing the law before Congress. That's something that's currently before us. And again, we should be able to pass it out of the House, and hopefully we'll be able to pass it out of the Senate. The president is doing what he can to move the agenda forward. Would we like to see it be more of a focus for him? Sure. But again, he has to deliver on health care. He's, again, if his presidency fails on health care, he'll be in a worse position to deliver on future items. So we need to give him a victory, which I think he'll get to on health care, and he'll be in a stronger position to deliver on some of his promises to the LGBT community.
I just have to say, in a sort of ironic way, how refreshing it is that we can have a debate within our own community about our president's intensity of support.
Right.
Because there's been a long drought leading up to this period where we had an administration that wasn't willing to sign these bills if we sent them to their desk. I also think it is our role to be frustrated and to be impatient. As individuals, we are denied full equal rights, and we ought to be impatient and insistent. As representatives, as many of us are, you meet the people who bear this burden every day. And I think of, don't ask, don't tell. You can't meet a Dan Choi or a Lieutenant Colonel Fehrenbach and say, well, I hope sometime next year we'll get around to doing this. You want it done immediately. And I think that tension is very healthy, and it should be placed at our feet as members of Congress, but also at the president's feet. And that's a good thing.
Well, that tension boiled over